Shut up, David. Shut up. Shut up, David. Shut up. Shut up, David.
All right. Everyone, thank you for coming in. So we'll wait a couple of minutes for people to log in as they're learning the new technology that we have available to us. We are streaming live to Facebook and YouTube right now. One only slightly less evil than the other. I'd like to thank everyone for coming here this evening. Sorry for starting late, but we want
that is called biting the hand that feeds.
That's right. Everyone talks smack about Facebook and YouTube on Facebook and YouTube. They're used to it. I don't think we're hurting Zuckerberg's or Google's feelings right now.
Oh, look, Christian, don't look now, but the ghost of Harry Houdini is behind you.
Go away.
Oh, you did it. Oh.
I did it, guys. I did it. It's magic. Randy was right. None of that's real.
Back when I was doing a show in Chicago, I had come up with an idea for the show, and that was we were going to give, if a friend of ours, a magician, happened to be in the audience, we were going to give that person a wig and pair of glasses and a hat. And at some point during the show, he was going to stand up and say, and pull off this wig and this hat and say, "I am the great Houdini, and I declare you to be a fraud." And I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was a hilarious idea because it would just be a gag. But it was like my co-star in the show was like, "Well, but where does that go from there?" I was like, "No, it's just a bit. It's just a bit. It's mostly to amuse me."
like most of David's show, really.
Yeah, but so we ended up never doing
it. That's a deep cut reference.
So we do have a few people in the room.
Wendy. That was a music. Just golly gee, I sure hope the spirit of Houdini doesn't come back and haunt me. I sure hope it doesn't come back. Get away. Okay, it's gone.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
So tonight we're talking about the life and times of Harry Houdini. So I'm going to put in the comments. I really appreciate it if you would to share this. Do not click on it because you're going to watch it with us. We'll take care of the playback for you. But this is please go to the BuzzFeed Unsolved YouTube channel and like and subscribe and give them a nice heads up for sort of kind of letting us watching it. In fact, that it exists and we're able to grab it like that. So we assume it's okay. Seriously, it's fine. But as long as you like it and subscribe to it like we are, I'm sure they won't mind a few extra views thanks to us. So please show your support for BuzzFeed Unsolved by liking and subscribing to their page. You also have another YouTube channel called Watcher, which is really a lot of fun. So I came across this. So I did not tell Christian, David, and Peter what video they're going to watch tonight. So this is the first time, as far as I know, let's say stumbled upon it by accident, this particular video. So this video is interesting in that it is not exactly accurate, but fun. The BuzzFeed guys are a lot of fun. They're hilarious. But there are a few historical aspects of it. I think it'd be fun. So let's go real quick. Christian, what is your experience with Harry Houdini?
We used to play canasta on Tuesdays. What's my experience with Houdini? Like, what's kind of my relationship to him as a figure in history?
When you were starting to write a show.
Yeah, and then I stopped. Personally, my relationship was he was a figure in history. He was never the figure in magic history that resonated with me. And I think it was mainly kind of all the braggart Houdini stuff that just didn't work for me. I've always been more of a Keller Thurston kid than a Houdini kid. a few years ago, a director friend did pitch to me the idea of me with him developing a solo show about Houdini. That became a whole other thing, which is for a different stream. I'm not doing that, but I just spent some time researching. And the part that resonated with me the most, and I've given a couple short talks on, because everybody in magic always says, oh, he was a small immigrant man, Jewish, escaping, that really meant something, the 20s, early America. And it's like, no, none of that meant anything here yet. None of that really took hold until he went to authoritarian Eastern Europe. And that's when walking into some sheriff office and saying, I will escape from your chains and locks and whatnot, that suddenly meant something. And that's when he becomes this big star. And that's when they have to have police and fire departments come in and like stop everybody because it's just the throngs are huge. When Rasputin wanted him to like stick around and be friends and be his advisor. I'm sorry, not Rasputin, the I'm spacing. David, who am I thinking about? The Tsar wanted Houdini to stick around.
Peter,
Peter's
great.
And wanted him to be his advisor. And he's like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to stick around. And then Rasputin comes around about a year or so later. Just seeing how he resonated back there. That's the part that like resonated with me now. And I've always thought, well, how do we make that resonant?
It's he followed the playbook of Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, where they had to go to Europe first,
right,
to become famous, and then when they came back, they were famous.
But I mean, even in that case, it's the whole idea of him escaping from authorities, chains and locks in authoritarian Eastern Europe. That's where that really took hold. That's where he became rich and famous, and he kind of, I guess, sort of like returned as a hero. He was about to retire here. He was supposed to be like, I'm going to do a contract, and I got my money. I'm good. I gotta commit to this one last contract, and he blew up in America finally. And that's kind of always the part that's always kind of grabbed me more about Houdini's life.
How about you, Peter?
So for me, the interest has been sort of in passing, as fascination as most things have been, that his role as a theatrical phenomenon was really something that struck me. And then I was asked to design magic for a musical called
Which I saw outside of Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. At the Lincolnshire Marriott.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting story about that. We originally did it in backers auditions, and then eventually it happened at the Goodspeed Opera House up in Connecticut, and then we took it around. And in Goodspeed, I could do a lot of the effects with black art, which was really delightful. Up at the Lincolnshire Marriott, interestingly,
it was in the round.
Exactly, it was in the round, and they wanted to do a water torture cell, and we couldn't do that, but we did a milk can escape that I borrowed from Bob Fellows. To be able to do that. And there was this moment in the show where there is Houdini's doing a substitution trunk, and thematically in the show, they want to have, he and Theo are doing the sub trunk, and that happens at one point, and then at another point, he's doing it, and instead of Theo coming out, then it's Bess who comes out. And so it's a transition between Theo and Bess as the primary connection. But at the Marriott, since it was in the round, there was no way to do a sneak or anything else. And at the Marriott, there's a 15-inch thick block of concrete in the middle that is the stage.
Yeah.
And they said, so can we do this? And I went, well, yeah, we can do it, but we have to cut a trap door through that concrete. And they went, oh, well, let's bring in the structural engineers and see if we could do it. And they did it. They cut a trap door through that went right down to the kitchens underneath, and so we could do the vanish and a runaround. It was just great. It was just terrific.
That's astonishing.
So,
I have to say, your magic was the best part of that show, because they, of course, it seems like every movie or play about Houdini messes so much with his story. They
just
it's
can't
like
do
they
it for
feel like they
straight.
have to jazz it up somehow, like he wasn't an interesting enough guy to begin with.
Exactly.
and so there
Can't say
was
he was boring at the very least. Yeah.
yeah. But your magic was really fantastic in that show.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, they put in a love affair between Marjorie and Harry
Yeah.
as
It
one
was
of the
like, and there were
dramas. It's like,
songs about
what?
it. It was like you
Exactly.
were sleeping with my brother, but you were sleeping with my mother, and it was like, what? What is
Exactly.
this? I was like, I remember
Yeah,
asking you early on. I was like, is there a song about peritonitis? And
Marjorie, the medium,
I was like, what
there
rhymes
should
with
have been.
peritonitis?
everything written about her said she had terrible body hygiene. I don't know if you ever if you delve deep into the history of spiritualism, Marjorie the Medium was a gross person.
Stinky.
Even for that time period in history.
Can't say that I was aware of any of that.
Yeah.
But thanks for expanding my education.
If you ever study
And now you know.
ectoplasm, that comes up.
Well then,
Yeah.
David, on that note, it's your turn.
yeah, I never idolized Houdini as a kid. Like that wasn't.
This is the best group of 3 other magicians you could have. None of us really cared about Houdini.
Why did you pick us?
I did pick us for that reason.
Okay, good. Yeah, it just didn't resonate for me, and I identified more with Robert Houdin, who was the inspiration for Houdini's name, because Robert Houdin had his own theater where he did his own shows and called all the shots, and that was what I wanted to be able to do.
A control freak.
Yeah,
control freak.
Yeah, kinda. So that to me was that's what resonated for me, was someone with a background in theater who basically created his own little theatrical world that then people paid to go visit. And tuning into because I admired Robert Houdin so much, tuning into the horrible screed that Houdini wrote about him, where he basically just discredited him completely, said he was a fraud, and that he'd ripped off his best ideas from other people and all this crazy stuff. It was like that made Houdini even less of an appealing character for me.
Yeah.
I will admit, Stephanie just asked, the magical musical. Yes, as a matter of fact, and the musical I was working on was scheduled to go for a Broadway appearance at one point, and we were bumped off that track because Hugh Jackman was supposed to come in starring in a musical on Houdini. That was who was writing the script on this?
I remember when that was
Alan
in the
Sorkin.
works, when that hit
Sorkin
the paper.
was going to write this, exactly.
Yeah.
And so our musical just sort of dropped off, and
that killed your
we
project.
came up with ideas. I said, is there a way? Wouldn't it be interesting?
Can we have dueling Houdinis, like across the street from each other?
Well, I proposed that instead of just doing it, we rewrite the musical and involve David Blaine as a character in this musical, and call it when David met Harry, and so I thought this would be a really interesting thing to do, but basically bring him in because Houdini in many ways is an inspiration for Blaine,
totally.
This idea, for the superhuman effects and these feats of being unbound by the limits of human, all that stuff. So I thought it would be a fascinating opportunity, and David said, "Hey, I'm black." I went, "Yeah, it'd be perfect. It would be absolutely great. It would be absolutely fabulous thing to do." So yeah, that would be
never went.
A great thing. But no, when I was out doing cruise ship acts, that was one of the pieces I would do. A Straitjacket Escape. The introduction on that was always, Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. North America and all the ships at sea. This is Walter Winchell. And introducing this whole thing. The year is 1926. Bouncing back from the oppression of war, America luxuriates at a time of great prosperity and romance, when suddenly, in the midst of this great decade, tragedy strikes. For on Halloween Eve, 1926, America loses one of her greatest entertainers.
Yeah.
So
Nice. Wow, we even got a monologue there.
I know.
Yep.
Peter's a professional.
Book Peter.
Can't believe I
Always
remember
book
that.
Peter.
People who didn't tune in are missing all this great content.
But thank you, Stephanie Bowles, for being here. Wendy. Thank you, Stephanie and Wendy, for watching.
Oh, we have 21 people watching. According
Ooh.
yeah.
Thank you,
far.
21 people.
Yeah. These are just the people that are actually bothering to say something to us.
We have a
I think
quorum.
Tom was there as well.
Yeah.
Tom
Yep.
said something.
Yep. Tone. We have John Gilmore here.
See?
Yep.
Hey,
Oh, the
Tiffany.
comment.
Magic nerds.
Oh, Tiffany Allen. Hello, Tiffany Allen.
Bunch of magic nerds.
Yeah.
Tiffany's here. Yeah. Yay. There you go.
There you go.
It's a party.
So personally, I've only been interested in Houdini through the concept of, what he's done for spiritualism, and his aspects of that, and of course the association with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and their amazingly entertaining falling out, as far as that's concerned. I went into that. So, but yeah, controversially to many magicians who are possibly listening, I was not a fan of Houdini as a person, because he was, let me put emphasis on this to everyone who's watching. If you went back in time, Houdini would not be your friend. It is likely he had none actual, real friends. He might have had associates and business partners and that sort of thing. He had his brothers. I think his only friend was his mother, and that was it. Maybe Bess.
Now, I thought him and Charles Carter had an actual friendship.
Charles Carter. I guess that's
from my Charles Carter research. I mean, I could be wrong.
It's debatable to some degree, but it's probably a professional friendship more than an actual.
Same
I don't know if he ever really knew what it was like to have a friend that had your back.
Yeah, I mean, I think he basically kept people at arm's length, and as long as they were supportive of his career and self-promotion, they were okay. But he'd turn on you in an instant, and the lengths he went to basically erase one of his brothers from the historical record. Like, he even going so far as to have him airbrushed out of family photos. Like, that's how nuts the guy was. So yeah, not someone you could trust really to be a decent person. And magicians seem to have cast him as the arch skeptic, but I don't think that was really his role. His role was, I'm going to, when spiritualism was around, he was like, well, here's a way for me to grab headlines.
Remember, he started this little known piece of history. He started as a spiritualist. He was a psychic medium.
Right. He did fortune telling and stuff like that. And
that's right.
Feeling good about it.
Yeah. That's how. Yeah, and then he became this, the art skeptic, as you said later on, or reinventing himself. He was the king of cards. Then he was the big escape artist. When he was mediocre at cards, compared to some modern card magicians. He was okay. He was good, but not great. I mean,
reports are that he was a competent magician. Not an inspired one.
Yeah. There's a famous story when he met Di Vernon, and it was that he did this bet that he would do for, what was it, $500 or something like that. If you can fool me twice, then I will give you $500. I believe it was $500. and Vernon fooled him 3 or 4 times, and
It's
finally,
a very basic magic effect.
yeah, and then finally they said, basically, you have to. Someone told him, I think it was Best said, you have to stop. You lost basically.
Yeah.
And they had a little bit of a rivalry.
To admit such a thing. Who
Is
does
there an
that
echo?
remind
Is
me
there
of?
is there a historical echo going on?
Yeah. Who does this remind us of? Who
Right,
could never
exactly. You have to
admit
stop.
that
You've
he was
lost.
wrong, or that someone might have been smarter than him?
Small hands. I'm seeing small hands.
I don't know. How big were Houdini's hands? I don't know.
Yeah, hard to say.
He wasn't a big guy.
He was a little dude. Yeah, which might have been part of his syndrome.
Yeah, but he was jacked, unlike the other guy.
Little men don't have syndromes.
I don't know. Just saying.
Oh, Houdini's back. Look out, Christian.
Oh, it's gone. I got rid of him. He's gone. I got it.
A spray bottle of holy water.
Exactly.
All right, so are you guys ready to watch the video? And so feel free to, if you wanted me to pause it to interrupt and interject an opinion, feel free to do that, or you can comment in the comment section if you feel like going that far as well. So Brent Stewart stopped in to say hi. All right, on with the show.
This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we look into the legendary life and suspicious death of history's most famous magician, Harry Houdini.
I thought you were going to say David Blaine.
You think David Blaine's more famous than Harry Houdini?
You saw the balloons, right?
I was a little bit of a freaky kid.
That's a given.
I was a frequenter of the Houdini magic shop.
You're a big Houdini kid.
I was a big Houdini kid. I wish I could have seen this guy perform magic. Obviously, I can't because he's dead. That's why we're talking about him.
But he did. Yeah.
Should we find out what happened?
I mean, we better, yeah.
Let's get into it.
Harry Houdini was born Erich Weiss in Hungary in 1874. When he was 4, he emigrated to the US with his mother Cecilia and 4 brothers to meet with his father Herman, who had already moved to the States a few years before. They settled in the town of Appleton, Wisconsin, where his father was a rabbi at a small Reform congregation. The family's relative poverty imprinted a drive to be successful on the boy who would be Houdini. By the age of 9, in part to help support his family, Erich began working as a trapeze performer in circuses. In 1882, his family moved to New York City, where Erich began performing in vaudeville shows, then considered to be the top of the entertainment pyramid. Though, at first, Erich didn't make much impact.
I know it worked out in the long run, but if I'm Herman, toiling to provide for my wife, Cecilia, is that her name?
Yeah.
Your boy comes to you and says, I'm going to step up, help out the family. I'm going to pitch in. I'm going to get a job. I'd be like, you're the best son. What are you going to do? I'm going to be a trapeze artist. I'd be like, get out of my house.
In 1891, a 17-year-old Erich and friend Jacob Hyman created an act that included a basic set of card and magic tricks called the Brothers Houdini. In 1892, after the death of Erich's father, the Brothers Houdini took their show on the road, performing at dime museums and small theaters. In 1894, Erich married 18-year-old Wilhelmina Beatrice Rayner, or Bess, who became his stage assistant. The pair toured as the Houdinis, but life as traveling performers was hard. In 1898, the 25-year-old Houdini considered quitting the business altogether, burnt out from years on.
You're getting on trains left and right. Chugga chugga choo choo. Hard to fall asleep on those things. Can't even get a good night's sleep. Wake up, you're in Cleveland. Huh? Wake up, you're in Boise. Time to do magic. Time to do magic. Time to do magic. Can you imagine?
I can't imagine. Imagine if you woke up in Florida. Time to get back on the train.
Please. Mosquitoes the size of bats. Get me out of here. That's the part of the biopic where it's just montage. He's waking up. He's like, what city am I in? They're like, do magic, you son of a bitch.
In 1899, while performing in a beer garden in St. Paul, Minnesota, Houdini caught the attention of one Martin Beck, a man of influence in the world of vaudeville. After watching Houdini escape from a pair of handcuffs, Beck gave Houdini a pair of his own handcuffs to try to escape from. Houdini did so with ease.
Gotta say, a little weird that this man is carrying handcuffs. Yeah. Could you imagine if you're a magician on stage and you're like, voila, I've escaped. And then some guy in the audience is like, try it with mine instead.
Little pink fuzzy ones.
Oh,
Where'd you
wait,
get
those aren't yours. Try it with these instead.
Sorry, wrong pocket.
Impressed, Beck put the Houdinis on the influential Orpheum vaudeville circuit, which meant the husband and wife would perform fewer shows but for more money. Houdini's profile began to rise as an escape artist, and he gained admiration for his skill at manipulating locks and pure brute strength.
Don't know if you know this, but this guy was stacked.
Tom Hardy.
There,
Jack,
this deserves
dude
comment.
Was big. He's a moose.
Like,
Have you seen a picture of this guy with his shirt off? There's pictures where he's like leaned out, you know, like Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
Yeah.
Like that kind of look. But there's other ones where he's like straight up Bane.
like human cloud.
Yeah. Guy's a goddamn transformer.
All right. Truckosaurus.
You think of magicians, you think of like sweaty nerds usually, like performing card magic. in their
Nowadays,
basement.
yeah. They didn't have muscle tech back then, did they?
Not that I know of. I think he was just like eating raw meat, just going into the forest and biting rabbits' heads off.
Yeah. Pulling it out of the hat.
Houdini also attracted thousands for the pure drama and showmanship of his performances. A typical act would see Houdini bound with chains and tossed in a box that was locked, roped, and weighted, which would then be tossed into water. Houdini, of course, escaped every time. In 1908, Houdini premiered his infamous
David, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I think it deserves comment that they've glossed over something here, and that is that without Martin Beck, there would not have been the Houdini we know about. Martin Beck basically saw a mediocre magician do a performance and said, "Hey, kid, drop all that magic rigmarole from your show and do that escape stuff. Just do the whole show of all that escape stuff." And Houdini was like, "Oh, okay," because he wanted to work. I mean, he had been on the verge of quitting show business. He was making so little money. He referred to himself as Dime Museum Harry because he was performing in dime museums where, you know, the ticket cost a dime and it was an all-day show, just a constant grindhouse rotation of performers. And, you know, sometimes there'd be like 6 shows a day or 8 shows in a day or whatever it was. And so he was near quitting. So if Martin Beck hadn't come along and seen, oh, here's the valuable thing, here's the fresh new idea in this guy's act, he would have been just kind of a so-so magician for his career, probably. So without Martin Beck, there would not be the Houdini we know about.
Yep, I agree with that.
infamous milk can trick. First, a milk can filled with water was inspected by audience members. A handcuffed Houdini was then squeezed into the milk can, which was sealed with 6 padlocks. A curtain was drawn, and the audience held their breath along with the submerged magician. Within 2 minutes, Houdini would somehow break free and emerge from behind the milk can, with it still padlocked. In his lifetime, no one ever knew how he did it.
How big is a milk can? Like,
No, he wasn't squeezed into a milk bottle. This is like a bigger, like a barrel.
okay.
Barrel is probably more accurate.
I was about to be very impressed.
That would be crazy.
Yeah. I would love nothing more to travel back in time and see him do some of this bullshit. You know, he'd kill on YouTube these days.
He probably would, but then it doesn't have the same kind of awe because it's not in front of a live audience. It's easier to fabricate.
Yeah.
Look, it's a trick, obviously, but the fact that no one knows how he did it, pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a
This
point.
is a trick that's over 100 years old. You
Yeah.
would think by now someone would be like, yeah, he obviously did this.
I bet magicians know. They probably just don't tell anybody.
Well, not from my research.
You wouldn't be able to. You're not part of the league.
The League? I've been to the Magic Castle 3 times.
They let anybody in there.
That's not what they told me. They told me that I'm the only person they've let in the Magic Castle in the last 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. How much did you pay to get in there?
They
Quite a
paid
bit.
me. They paid me.
That's not true.
It's true.
Ryan, is that true?
No.
Houdini had a penchant for not just creating his own amazing illusions, but performing other magicians' tricks as well. Only better. For instance, British magician Charles Morritt pioneered a trick where he made a live donkey.
Christian,
Occasionally taking other people's magic tricks and then suing them for having stolen it from him.
that's right. Yep. So that's let's put emphasis on that. A lot of magicians consider Houdini a hero and have posters of him in their house.
He frequently stole things from other people, and he was highly litigious, and if not downright like a cartoon villain sometimes, like sending people in to like mess up other people's shows and stuff.
Well,
God, who does this really remind me of?
thankfully, that aspect of magic is no longer in existence.
I mean,
Never happened.
but this is the problem. This is the problem when someone who's this ego driven reaches this kind of stature. There's nothing holding them back, right? As we've learned.
I mean, that's what happened to me.
Right. Yeah, this is actually an elaborate intervention for Christian. This whole thing. It's like, Christian, you're getting too big for your britches.
And then the three ghosts visit Christian on Christmas Eve and he changed forever.
I call Christmas yet to come.
And it's just David cooking me vegan food all day long. More bean paste. More bean paste.
More mystery loaf.
Escape from this can of bean paste. Okay, I digress. I'll mute myself.
Disappear on stage. Houdini paid Morritt for the rights to perform the trick and then figured out how to do it, but with an elephant. According to John Cox, author of the Houdini website, Wild About Harry, quote, "We still don't know how he did the elephant trick. He would Houdiniize these more common feats of magic. His mind was always innovating, always inventing," end quote.
That would be like me saying, like, hey, nice turtleneck, Shane, asking you where you got it. And then the next day I walk into the office and my turtleneck is much bigger than yours. It's like all the way up here.
I would feel pretty devastated if you complimented, and then the next day I just saw your judging eyes, just like,
Oh, you like this turtleneck?
oh, this old thing?
Part of the reason why, more than 100 years later, we still don't
David
know
has some
the
words to
exact
say.
tricks behind
David has
it.
something to say.
David
Yes,
has
David.
more to say.
David, more to say?
This is a mischaracterization of this incident, because Morritt, who invented the vanishing donkey, was a legit genius. A legit genius. The principle he used to make that donkey vanish was unheard of in magic at that time. And what Houdini did was capitalize on the buzz that went around about that illusion. And yes, he made it bigger, but all reports are that the version of it he performed was extremely stupid and obvious.
Oh, you mean like 20 people bringing a box on stage and 5 people pushing it off?
Right, right. It's
Other way around.
Was this,
opposite way around.
Yeah,
was this the box that was like the giant tube, but not? Or was that the elephant?
My understanding was that it was basically the kind of like the some versions of the vanishing car. It was basically like an optical effect, and it was obvious when like a whole bunch of people had to push that box off the stage that the elephant was still inside it.
Yeah.
Jay Marshall famously said, Jay Marshall, the magician in Chicago and owner who was part owner of Magic Inc. with his wife Fran, he said that he saw Houdini when he was a kid. He went to see Houdini's show, And he said he fell asleep during it.
By the way, the work on Moritz donkey is beautifully described and researched by Jim Steinmeier.
Yeah, there's a fantastic book called Hiding the Elephant.
Exactly.
Right.
That is really quite fabulous book. I think it's Steinmeier's best book, honestly. And it's all about the development of that illusion and what a genius Moritz was. And Houdini just basically created a bigger ballyhoo for something and then kind of mucked it all up. So there you go. It's not like he did a better version. No.
All right, we ready?
All
Okay.
right. This is going to be a 4-hour stream, by the way, everybody. Just buckle in.
Behind Houdini's performances is because he guarded his secrets so well. Though he was wary of imitators, Houdini didn't patent his tricks, since in the patent process, he would have to give a detailed explanation for how they worked. Those explanations would be publicly available and therefore destroy the magic. To get around this, for his Chinese water torture cell trick, Houdini staged the trick on stage in England as a one-act play, with only a single person in the audience. This allowed him to copyright the act instead of patenting it, meaning no one else could perform the trick, and how he pulled it off could remain a secret.
How do they do that nowadays? Is it the same thing?
What, in terms of keeping tricks a secret?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's some like inside baseball stuff for magicians. Only things that
magicians, let us know in the comments.
who I know because I'm in that, you know.
No, you're not. You're not a magician. I've never seen you do magic. Wait.
Isn't that the best trick of all?
No, actually, that's not impressive. I guess if you're good enough, you don't even have to worry about copyright because who's going to figure it out?
That's
Nobody.
what I was just going to say, yeah. If they figure it out, good for them.
While Houdini cultivated an air of mystery around his death-defying feats, he never claimed his abilities to be supernatural. In fact, Houdini grew to detest claims of otherworldly powers, becoming one of leading critics of the spiritualist movement that was gaining momentum in Europe and the United States in the wake of World War I. In the 1890s, Houdini and his wife Bess dabbled in practicing spiritualism, attempting to summon the dead in public after researching names at local graveyards. It didn't take Houdini long to realize the entire practice was nonsense.
Do you agree with that?
No.
Well, here's where I interject a little bit. As we mentioned earlier, Houdini and Bess actually practiced spiritualism as fortune tellers for a circus early on. So that information is sort of inaccurate. They didn't necessarily pursue because they already knew how to fake it. I don't remember if they actually mentioned this in this particular video, but of course there's the famous falling out between Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I think that comes up in a little bit, but they don't go into too many details. So maybe we'll wait a little bit before we talk about that. But we definitely should mention that a little bit. But yeah, they were already knowledgeable of the fakery. They weren't experimenting around with it. I think it is generally accepted that Houdini would have liked to have known or would have liked to have seen real supernatural phenomenon, but he probably most of his adult life didn't believe in it. You know, or he would have liked to. He might have liked to have been proven wrong. So,
well, the story is that he, after the death of his mother, that his attempt to try to contact her and the failure of all mediums to do so, in fact, trying to communicate as if it's his mother reaching out to him and doing it in English, a language she never spoke.
How it goes is that they get invited to Doyle's house. He has a private property in New Jersey that he would stay in while he was in the United States. So they invited them to the house, and Mrs. Doyle goes into a trance and performs automatic writing. For those who don't know, that's where you write with the hand of the ghost who's channeling through you. during the process. So she goes in this trance and she's writing, and she writes, I think, 6 pages of notes from the deceased Mrs. Weiss, Houdini's mother. And at the very beginning of the letter, she draws a crucifix, a cross, and puts a circle around it. You know, and all 6 pages, as Peter has said, were in English. Now, there was multiple things wrong with this. The whole letter was filled with, "Don't worry, Harry. I'm here with your father now. Everything's fine. I'm happy here in heaven. Don't Harry, Harry, Harry." So, despite the multiple things that are wrong with that, Houdini asked one question. My mother didn't speak English. She barely spoke any English because she was from Hungary. And without missing a beat, Mrs. Doyle says, "Why, Harry, in heaven, everyone speaks English."
Oh, that's perfect.
English is the language of God in heaven.
So perfect.
There are no other people, just the English.
So the other thing wrong with this, of course, is that why would it be a cross? He's Jewish.
Yeah.
His birth name was Eric. She never called him Harry.
Harry.
But Harry or Harry, Harry at most.
Yeah.
But yeah, she never called him Harry.
Yeah.
She always called him Eric. So that's like all these things wrong. And this eventually led to the falling out between Doyle and Houdini, who up at this point were friendly rivalries. They were good terms. They were friends, as a matter of fact, as much as Houdini could have a friend. But that was very quickly dismissed. Doyle took a ship back the next day, took a ship back to England and received a telegraph across the Atlantic Ocean telling him that Houdini put out a press release saying that I'm no longer, I can no longer support Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's crazy theories on spiritualism and that sort of thing, or something along those lines. So,
oh man, he put out a press release about their breakup.
Yep, that's right.
So,
I mean, really, one of the world's first celebrities.
Yeah. The first Instagram influencer.
The Kanye, the early 20th century, Harry Houdini.
Yeah. So creepy. Okay.
Thought I got you.
Look,
So talking to the dead.
we're going to get into this more later in terms of what I believe.
I'm very curious to find out your stance on life after death.
I guess you'll just have to stay tuned.
According to famous magician Teller, quote, "When you are a professional magician, you want to see your art respected for what it is, not misused to mislead people about the universe," end quote. Houdini would ultimately go on to attend seances undercover, exposing the mediums as simply skilled performers. He would also recreate their tricks at his own shows, asserting there was nothing supernatural about it. In all, Houdini spent years attempting to expose mind readers and mediums as con artists, duping an otherwise ignorant audience who might be suffering genuine grief. And while mediums and seances were no strangers to public doubt, Houdini's vendetta was personal. In 1913, while Houdini was in Sweden to perform for the royal family, Cecilia Weiss, Houdini's mother, passed away. Houdini, a self-proclaimed mother's boy, was reportedly so stricken by the news that he fainted and wept uncontrollably. In the aftermath, though he had already concluded personally that spiritualism was a con, he nevertheless searched in vain for a real medium to try to contact his deceased mother.
Of course he'd be sad. It's his mother.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
This is important to point out, though, because it's not so much that he overall believes spiritualism is just not real. It's more that he believes a majority of the people who are practicing spiritualism, like mediums and psychics, all that, are con men.
Flim flam men. I continue to respect him.
And here is where my belief aligns with his. I believe in ghosts, but I don't believe every place is haunted that claims it's haunted. Nor do I believe every medium is telling the truth. But I do believe in ghosts. So me and Houdini are a bit simpatico.
Yeah, Houdini believes 1% of things, and you believe 95% of things, right?
Yes, 3%, yeah.
I'm just saying, we've been to a lot of places. And you seem to buy into a lot.
look, I'm trying to conduct a very thorough investigation, and if I find anomalies, I'm going to report them. But that's not to say that every place we've been to has been haunted. And to prove it, I will name one place that is not haunted for sure that we've gone to, and that is, drum roll please,
In 1922, Houdini was invited to a seance being held by Lady Doyle, the wife of his friend Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes. Sir Doyle believed through spiritualism he could communicate directly with his son Kingsley, who had tragically died in the 1918 influenza epidemic. Further, Sir Doyle believed Houdini himself possessed supernatural abilities, something Houdini adamantly denied. Nevertheless, it appears Sir Doyle's admiration for Houdini's otherworldly gifts was at least partially the reason why the two celebrities' friendship began.
Yeah, so Doyle believed that Houdini was like a demon or something that had supernatural powers, and Houdini was like, dude, I just do magic.
But he refused to accept that?
And the guy was just like, nah.
No, you're magic.
You're holding out on me, bro. Well, I mean, I know the feeling as somebody who has a friend who's only with him because of his gift. I have the vision.
You do have the vision.
And I have adamantly denied it over and over in many episodes on this show.
And yet I insist that you, Ryan Bergara, have the vision ever since you fell into that pile of bricks.
It's a weird symbiotic relationship that I could kind of relate to. So I don't have the vision.
His brain is cracked.
I could hear you. Just because you're...
Sorry, your brain is cracked.
At the seance conducted by Lady Doyle held at the Ambassador Hotel in Atlantic City, the hostess rapped on the table 3 times and claimed to be in contact with Houdini's mother. Lady Doyle wrote out 15 pages of messages for Houdini, who thanked the Doyles and left quietly. While many may have scoured the pages for some comfort from a loved one beyond the grave, Houdini seethed. The pages were all in English, a language his mother never spoke.
Let's say you're a Houdini. Oh God, I regret saying that because now you're going to take 10 minutes to get in character as Houdini. And apparently all that takes is you slicking your hair back. What in the name?
Yes.
This is Shane Day in his morning dump every morning. Yeah.
Empty this vessel.
Anyways, you're Houdini. This person's saying they're communicating with a dead relative. 10 seconds into the seance, you realize this is a blownster because they're saying they're speaking in a language that relative never spoke. It's very funny to me that Houdini sat there and let this person scrawl out 15 pages worth and didn't go like, she didn't speak English. The pettiness of this guy, I'm going to make this person like really sell it for like an hour.
Do you think he was seething or was he sort of like...
He was seething.
Okay, yeah, because I'd be pissed.
So would you not say anything?
I would be livid and I would want them to feel shame.
The seance with the Doyles seems to have been the final straw for Houdini, who now set out to expose spiritualists as frauds with renewed determination. Houdini had already written a book, Miracle Mongers and Their Methods, a complete expose of the modus operandi of fire eaters, heat resistors, poison eaters, venomous reptile defiers, sword swallowers, human ostriches, strongmen, etc., which exposed the tricks and trades of various sideshow level acts claiming miraculous feats.
He started off at the bottom of the barrel, doing a bunch of sideshow acts, essentially. Now here he is writing a book exposing all these sideshow acts. Like, what did the sword swallowers do to him? What did the human ostriches do to him? By the way, human ostrich is a person, a human who just eats anything like glass or like a fucking soda can.
Now, my man David Blaine did that.
I'm just saying, it's weird for me to just have him go, I hate spiritualists. I'm going to come after every sideshow performer there ever was and make sure no one could perform except me.
Well, but at the same time, someone could take him down too. If they figured out his tricks, they could go after him and nobody's doing it. So I guess he's the best. And if he wants to take everybody else down, then good for him.
Houdini followed that book up with A Magician Among the Spirits, a ski.
Christian?
That doesn't mean you're the best. That means you have the most money for court battles.
That's right.
Sidebar.
Expose on the spiritualist trickery. He also went forward with a 40-page illustrated pamphlet dedicated to taking down one popular medium in particular, Boston's Mina Crandon, also known as Marjorie. The pamphlet was appropriately titled, quote, Houdini exposes the tricks used by the Boston medium Marjorie, end quote.
For as gifted as he was as a magician, not much of a wordsmith, this man.
Would have worked as a YouTube title.
That's true. A
I'm
little
clicking.
long. Could have.
I'm clicking. He gets his name up front. You know, he's not just like, the fraud, Marjorie. He's like, yo, I'm in this one. Check it out.
Do you think Houdini would have been an expose vlogger in today's
Oh,
world?
big time.
With just thumbs of him going like,
Yeah.
like looking surprised with question marks on it. Is Marjorie real? You'll never believe what I found when I Googled Shane Madej.
Houdini also began lecturing around the country about, quote, fraudulent spiritualistic phenomena, end quote, going so far as to testify before Congress in 1926, lobbying for a bill to regulate mediums and fortune tellers, potentially threatening to charge those, quote, pretending to tell fortunes for reward or compensation, end quote, with a crime. Unfortunately for Houdini, his campaign would be a short-lived one. On October 11th, 1926, Houdini broke his left ankle during a performance in Albany, New York. Being a goddamned professional, Houdini finished the performance and went against doctors' orders by traveling to his next set of performances in Montreal. While in Montreal, Houdini took time out of his schedule for one of his favorite pastimes, giving a lecture at McGill University about what fraudulent hucksters spiritualists were. After a matinee performance several days later, some medical students from McGill visited Houdini in his dressing room. One of the students, Jocelyn Gordon Whitehead, presumably because Houdini's reputation as a jacked dude with incredible strength preceded him, asked if he could punch the magician in the stomach. Houdini said yes, but before he could tighten his gut, the student dealt a few fast and hard blows.
I just can't imagine going up to someone and be like, hey, can I punch you? And the person's like, yeah, give you
Yeah. You're just like, Jesus Christ.
Oh shit, are you dead? Big fan.
Like, it sounds like Houdini couldn't even get out a syllable of yes before the guy was throwing a couple haymakers. Yeah. Like, he was just revved up. The whole show was like, sick trick. I'm gonna punch the shit out of that guy.
Hey, Christian.
So, which one of you fine gentlemen knows? Did he actually know this Jocelyn guy, or did he not actually know the Jocelyn guy?
He did not actually know him from anything that day.
Because I read conflicting things where like he actually like he knew him, he had some books borrowed from him.
Yeah, no, there's weird conspiracy theories and stuff like that, but it was just no, this was a bunch of students, they were just being obnoxious, and he was just, you know, it was like, yeah, you're a tough guy. Well,
little known
how
fact
about this?
Is that
I mean, it was
the college that kid came
McGill.
from actually celebrated the death of Houdini when he died, because they basically was bragging about their sports kid killing the famous indestructible magician. You know,
see, Canadians are terrible. Canadians are terrible. I don't trust them. I don't like them. I won't go to Montreal ever.
How did they get that
Nice
reputation
on
as
the
being so
outside,
polite?
really ugly on the inside.
Ugly on the inside. They killed Houdini.
Yeah, Bill Abbott always explains.
I think we have to invade now.
yeah. This is for Houdini.
Viva Houdini! I'm sorry, it's Peter. But what were you saying about Bill Abbott?
Yeah. No, it's there's no real conspiracy there, and it was just a dumb, like, showing off kind of thing to do, and I mean, on both of their parts. I mean, Houdini could have just said no. Like, what are you doing? I'm in my dressing room getting ready for a show. I mean,
So let's really be clear here. What actually killed Houdini was toxic masculinity.
yes,
probably, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting
He
it.
felt like he had to say yes because he had to be the tough guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
If he'd have just said, "Get lost, kid. I got a show to do," he would have been okay. Well, no, I mean,
But
the
this is
theory
something
is that he had appendicitis, so his appendix probably would have burst. This hastened that process.
Well, that you're about to find out in this video. That is a debatable comment.
Okay.
Right there. Yeah. So, but I also want to point out that if you're a magician and a college kid wants to come into your dressing room, only if they're a philosophy major, not in the sports or anything like that.
Can I punch you to determine that we do not live in a solipsistic universe?
That's right. Brain aneurysm, and then he dies. Anyway.
Yeah, like I need to punch you to disprove solipsism. Okay.
It's the old Zen cone, right?
Guy when I get the chance. And Houdini was
But
like,
first, I'm gonna ask.
Houdini began to complain of stomach cramps that evening. During a 15-hour train ride to his next show in Detroit, Houdini was in a great deal of pain, both from his stomach and his shattered ankle, arriving in the Motor City with a 104-degree fever. A doctor was brought to the theater and diagnosed Houdini with acute appendicitis and told the magician he needed to get to the hospital immediately. Houdini refused, apparently declaring, quote, "I'll do this show if it's my last," end quote.
Oof.
prophetic.
Yeah, I'd be like,
It was his last.
I'm not gonna do this show. I would go to the hospital.
Houdini somehow made it through the show, and eventually, his wife convinced him to finally go to a hospital. On October 24th, Houdini had an emergency operation to remove his already burst appendix. He underwent a second operation on October 28th. But on October 31st, 1926, Harry Houdini succumbed to a severe case of sepsis.
This is interesting because I always thought it was like, bam, and then he's just like, ow,
Yeah.
dead, R.I.P. I didn't realize it was so protracted.
Yeah, he did another show.
Newspapers almost immediately began to speculate about foul play. With his final curtain drawn at the height of his popularity, it's time to jump into theories surrounding what brought down history's most famous magician. Our first theory, and the most widely accepted, is that Whitehead's meathead desire to hit another person accidentally caused the appendicitis that led to Houdini's demise. However, according to a 2013 study in the World Journal of Emergency Surgery, appendicitis as the result of blunt force trauma is extremely rare, to the extent that there is still debate whether it could ever happen. Of course, there's still the possibility that Houdini was developing appendicitis independently of the punches. Either way, this theory postulates that Houdini was simply the victim of random bad luck, and that refusing medical treatment certainly did not help matters.
If your appendix is not doing great, and maybe doctors out there can holler at us and let us know if.
So this was researched a little bit a few years ago. All right.
Yeah, a punch isn't going to cause appendicitis.
No,
Appendicitis is a condition
There's
in which,
one debate on whether or not it could even aggravate existing appendicitis. So
if your appendix is swollen and you take 3 punches straight to your midsection on that side, yeah, it could burst your appendix.
Yeah, believe it or not, that has actually been debated. That part right there. It sounds contradictory to what you would think, but there was an interview a few years ago. It was doctors were asked if that could be done. It was during, I think it was the one that Paul Draper might have been in which if you could burst the appendix, and if it was in the early stages, then probably not. Because it leaks, it splits or something like that. I can't remember. But the appendix, believe it or not, is a very tough organ. And it doesn't rupture easily. So the doctors concluded that although theoretically possible, nevertheless unlikely. They think it's just a coincidence. It's just a good story that we like to believe that it could, because it happened at the same time. But
so we can't blame the Canadians.
That's right.
All right.
I was really hoping to blame
That's right,
Canada.
Invade.
Yep, he took
All right.
credit for it though. He took the credit for killing Harry Houdini.
If it got punched, would it make it worse?
I'm sure it wouldn't help.
No.
But like I just said, they're not even sure that it could be caused by blunt force trauma. It's
Yeah.
possible that it was just going to happen regardless. In fact, this might have actually been, in a weird way, if you want to spin this, it could have been like a lucky turn of events if he went to the hospital.
Yeah, but in the same way, maybe it's unlucky because of the punch. He was like, well, I got punched, I'll be fine. Whereas if it would have happened without the punch.
I see. He doesn't strike me as the kind of cat that would be like, stomach's hurting out of nowhere. Got to go get this checked out.
Yeah.
He's probably more like, I've escaped from a milk can. I could do anything.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, hubris.
Go to the hospital if you're hurting.
Yeah.
Moral of the story.
Our second theory is that Whitehead was an assassin sent to try to murder Houdini by punching him to death. Houdini had no shortage of enemies, whether it was the other magicians he was constantly belittling, the individual mediums he was writing pamphlets discrediting, or the entire field of spiritualism that he was lobbying to make illegal. Perhaps someone got fed up with Houdini and wanted to prevent him from doing any more damage. Admittedly, this theory's a little weak. As we already said, trauma-caused appendicitis, if it even exists at all, is very rare. So it would be a pretty ineffective assassin who chooses that as their preferred means of murder.
I will say, it's a very narrow window if this person was the perfect assassin to know that there's a 0.001% chance that you could cause appendicitis from blunt force trauma, despite some people not even thinking that's possible.
Right.
But Whitehead was a med student.
Yes, but them saying that there's a very, very rare chance does not mean it's not like Smaug's scale that you have to shoot a little arrow into. It's just saying like the likeliness of that happening is almost impossible.
Like,
not that there's a very specific technique.
Yeah, like
to it.
they don't have posters at med school where they're like, all right, here's the kill zone right here. If you punch right here, this guy's appendix is going to go boom.
Our final theory is that someone from the spiritualist underworld poisoned Houdini while he was in the hospital. We've already mentioned the spiritualist community's potential motivation for assassination. And according to a Houdini biography, The Secret Life of Houdini, poisoning was their preferred method of murder. Despite receiving death threats, Houdini and Bess traveled without security. Apart from explaining why random med school students could punch him on a whim, this means there would have been plenty of opportunity for a spiritualist with a syringe to get to a Houdini while he recovered from surgery. Houdini was buried without an autopsy, meaning there is no evidence to disprove or prove this theory.
The poison's weird because he was clearly in distress well before he went to the hospital. So at that point, yeah, I guess you could finish the job, but it seems like he was in pretty dire straits. So
yeah, I mean, sepsis is not a joke.
Nothing funny about sepsis. I'm not laughing.
Seems like you're throwing down the gauntlet.
Sepsis. No laughs here.
What do you want from me, man?
Nothing. Just saying, we're not laughing at it.
I'm not. I'm laughing at you.
Are
not
you laughing at
I'm
sepsis?
laughing at you not laughing at sepsis, which is not something to laugh about.
He's laughing at sepsis.
I'm laughing at you not laughing.
Houdini's sudden death shocked the world. The New York Times wrote of the collective disbelief that Houdini, quote, who so often had seemed to thousands to be cheating the very jaws of death, end quote, could die from the likes of appendicitis. If some angry spiritualists were behind Houdini's death, their plan ultimately backfired. Even in death, Houdini worked to discredit their field, as he and his wife had agreed that when one of them died, the other would try to contact their deceased spouse. For 3 years, Bess tried to make contact with her late husband. No medium was ever able to relay their prearranged code.
Cool.
Which is, I won't lie, baller as hell.
Yeah.
I feel like we should develop some sort of code between us that if one of us dies, well, I'll tell you what.
Oh.
In the event of my untimely death, fingers crossed it doesn't happen, If it does, I will do everything in my power to prove that ghosts are real. I will show up at every haunted house and I will paint the walls with like, ghosts are real. This is Ryan Bergara. Suck it, Shane. Stuff like that.
It'd be funny if ghosts were real and you were on this mission and you died and you just went straight to hell.
Would you even hunt for me if I died?
No.
My ghost? Not even in my memory, just like one?
I'd like turn on the radio every now and then. You could do the thing that ghosts do, which is manipulate the airwaves.
What if you did a spirit box session and it was the clearest one ever, but it still sounded like,
Hi, it's me, Ryan Bergara. I told you ghosts were real. Suck my balls, big boy.
I'd be like, I don't know, dude.
Since we're unable to reliably communicate with Harry Houdini, the mystery of whether he was murdered by slighted fortune tellers or simply the victim of gastrointestinal trauma remains, like the secrets behind some of his amazing tricks, unsolved.
there's conjecture around his death here, but I feel pretty safe in saying that he likely suffered injuries or had appendicitis before.
It's possible.
Whatever, jokes aside, promise me you'll investigate my apartment after I die if I die.
I promise.
Don't cross your fingers. You uncross those fingers. Promise me right now on camera.
I promise.
Are you crossing anything? Like,
No.
You promise?
Da 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 da.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes, please go.
It was an assassination. It was the dumbest assassination plot ever. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. I've heard he has appendicitis. Let's burst the appendix. How are we going to do that? I know. We'll pose as students and go
Punch
in
him a few
and punch
times.
him.
If that doesn't work, we can always sneak into the hospital and poison him. Hey guys, why don't we just shoot him? Like, what the? Like, it's so dumb.
Did we get kiboshed on YouTube and Facebook because we were streaming somebody else's copyrighted content?
Just YouTube, apparently. Yeah. Yeah, no, it wasn't. It might have been the music background that they probably have custom music, believe it or not. So yeah,
Oh, so the feed on YouTube disappeared.
yeah, yeah.
So where are we still streaming?
Oh, we're still streaming on Facebook.
Oh,
Facebook may not keep it up after the fact because it'll eventually be like, oh, this is somebody else's copyrighted material.
oh wow.
Possibly. They do that.
Oh, it's done. It's that part's done anyway, so it doesn't really matter at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need to keep this up for posterity.
One Punch Man.
It was the
Exactly.
drums in the background, Tome says. Interesting.
Well, that was the
I'm-
music.
Yeah, as soon
I'm
as they
actually much more-
kicked in, YouTube dropped it.
I'm actually interested by the fact that Houdini flew an airplane in Australia.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he was trying to get the record for first flight there,
Right.
and just missed it. Apparently,
Oh, did he miss it?
I think he just missed it. I think there was someone else who was
that's true, yeah.
also doing it and happened to just beat him.
So close.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was about like find what's trending, capitalize on it to get his name in the paper, and then move on to the next thing. That he excelled at that.
Yeah.
But definitely not a dude you'd want to hang around with. If any of the reports are true.
So Vince, what's your thoughts on the whole thing? On that whole show?
I enjoyed this. I think those guys are funny. I've enjoyed their shows before and that sort of thing. But I think there's a few historical inaccuracies, obviously, especially in their references to magic. I mean, we all know how most of that was done.
How the milk can was done.
The milk can was done. The elephant, disappearance. The donkey, even, that was actually written up and appears in a book at some point. I think the original creator put it out. But we're back on YouTube again since our Hi
YouTube.
Yeah.
I'll recommend 2 books about Houdini that I think are good. One is Ruth Brandon's The Life and Many Deaths of Harry Houdini. I think this book gives a good sense of what a twisted character he was, what a tortured guy he was, and how unpleasant he could be. That other Houdini biographers have done some pretty amazing things in that they've discovered new information about him, things that we didn't know before, and stuff like that. But the trouble with most biographies of Houdini is they tend to not convey a sense of a real flesh and blood person. They've just become like a collection of names and dates and places and facts. And I appreciated the Brandon book because it conveys a sense of a person and what drove him, what motivated him, and what a twisted character he was. The other book I recommend is, I got this recently. There was an exhibit on Houdini that my friend David London curated called, what was it called? Inescapable or something like that. Inescapable. And it was traveling around to different museums around the U.S. And at that exhibit, I found this book by Charlotte Montague, the Houdini, The Life and Times of the World's Greatest Magician. It's a lavishly illustrated book that's very beautiful. Oh, there's the Fox sisters, the famous spirit mediums. And a very pretty design for a book that really provides a very nice overview of him, and doesn't just basically portray him as a superhero, as an infallible superhero, as quite a few biographies did in the past. It kind of gets into his weirdness a little bit, and so I recommend both of those. Yeah, thank you. So,
yeah, my book recommendation would be the very recent. In fact, I think it came out last year. The Life and Afterlife of Harry Houdini. Actually, it's a good book. It covers a lot of the events that led up to and made his career. It tries to cover things that aren't often covered in other books and material. It is by Joe Posnanski. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. And it goes a little bit after his death as well. I mean, pretty much a lot of biographies, unfortunately, just kind of stop right there. They talk about the seances, that sort of thing. It goes into a little bit about the coding between him and Bess, and the fact that the code was revealed with Bess, who actually became quite the alcoholic afterward. Unfortunately, she was known to while Houdini himself was a teetotaler. Bess openly smoked and drank and that sort of thing, and she became quite the boozer afterward, for lack of a better term. I shouldn't say it like that, but you get the idea. She became addicted to alcohol.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and she got involved with a reporter she probably was romantically involved with. I can't say that she had an affair because, Houdini was dead. But
if he'd had his way, she would have remained
even after death in his
yeah. I mean, the Brandon book conveys some of this too, the sense of that Houdini had demanded such complete loyalty and devotion. Like, those people basically subjugated their lives to him, the people closest to him. and it was all about his life and his career and so on. So that when he died and he was suddenly gone, those people were rootless. They had no direction to their lives, and they were kind of lost. And Bess especially. So he kind of he sort of ruined their lives in a sense. And so that after he was gone, it was like being in a cult with a cult leader. And once the cult leader is gone, it's like there seems to be no sense of direction in life anymore.
There's
sounds familiar. Christian's about to say.
Yeah. Well, Tom has an interesting question. How much humbug is in the secret life of Houdini? Anybody in the grid want to tackle that one?
I'd say a lot. I mean, I think it's a fun theory as fiction, but
And the theory being that he was a spy.
He was
right?
a secret agent, yes. But it's like what that theory is based on is the thinnest evidence possible. So I read that book with amusement, but I don't think it's. I would take it with 5 canisters of salt.
Didn't they put that in the that terrible miniseries that came out on the History Channel last year?
Yes.
I think they mentioned this spying.
Yeah, it was based in part on that book.
Yeah.
The one with Adrian Brody as Houdini.
That's right.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't remember pictures of Houdini having such an enormous schnoz on.
I actually enjoyed the movie. There's a movie called Fairy Tale: A True Story, and it's Charlie Reynolds was the magic consultant on that movie, and it's Harvey Keitel playing Houdini in that movie, and it's a movie about the Cottingley fairies. The two little girls who took the photos of fairies in their backyard, and which became famous and which Conan Doyle endorsed as fact. It's a fun movie. It's a very interesting movie, and it's interesting also because they portray Houdini as a really nice guy. Like Harvey Keitel plays Houdini as a really nice guy.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not Houdini. but it's a great performance, and it's a really cool little movie. So I highly recommend it.
We're actually roasting Harry Houdini tonight.
Yeah. So
fairly enough.
Well, I think you should take a moment just to reflect on sort of his mythical role, and the role that he plays in popular cultural and mythology. This idea. And Christian, you were talking about this earlier, that it's only his success really was one coming back from his adventures in Europe, and the fact that he confronted sort of these Eastern European monarchs and police forces, the extreme police forces. And I think that's a really important role that he played, this idea of the symbolism, this idea of one man conquering restraints, and overcoming these obstacles.
An immigrant.
An immigrant, and a person who refused to submit. I mean, there's a line I've used, refused to submit to any idea, person, or institution that would strive to hold him back. Keep him from being free. And this idea of this idea of ultimate restraint, and this person who's able to use his wits and his abilities to overcome any obstacle that somebody else would try to constrain him. Not just an obstacle, but a way of constraining him and putting his life at risk.
Definitely captured the cultural zeitgeist. It was an idea whose time had come. And I think if if it hadn't been for him running across Martin Beck, he probably would have missed the opportunity to tap into that cultural movement.
I'd never consider, this time period we're in now kind of brings me to think about this idea that, this idea of the pandemic at the time and the role that it played in this whole thing, this idea of fragility of life and this idea of keeping, this fact that so many people are dying and the fact that can you come back from that and the risks that you're faced with, I never really considered that before. This discussion this evening, actually.
Yeah. World War I and the pandemic caused such massive amounts of death that the rise, a resurgence of the spiritualist movement, which had kind of died off, it brought it back because people were so desperate for some sign that death wasn't the end.
Right.
And there's articles coming out now, past few months, of how much alternative religions or spirituality, things that are not the typical Judeo-Christian thing, are definitely on the rise this year. I have a friend who isn't into that kind of a thing normally, and this year she's going full witchy.
Wow.
And and she's not a shut-eye, but I don't know if that's a term everybody watching on the stream knows.
Yeah, do you want to define that term? I mean, just for general usage, it doesn't have to be precise. But
the shut-eye would be the spiritualist or the psychic that is not aware of what they're doing, the fully believing, as opposed to the open eye, which is maybe somebody who might be fraudulently doing these things, fully aware, or at least fully aware that maybe this isn't actually real, or what the ceremony they're about to do isn't really going to do anything, but they are doing it for the benefit of others, either to trick them or not to trick them, but they are doing it for the benefit of others. Wendy, is that about right?
Willingness to employ fraudulent means in order to achieve a result that you either believe in or don't believe in.
But I mean, but there's also, because I also know the open eyes that like they don't necessarily believe in it, but great, thank you. They're not trying to be fraudulent. They're just kind of like, well, this is what this person needs. They're not going to go to a therapist. I'll try and send them on their way in a positive direction. And the good ones try not to let you come back again. The bad ones want you to come back many times for $100 more.
Well, there's also a syndrome that happened with many spirit mediums in the 19th century, where if you pretend to be a thing for long enough, you eventually come to believe that you're the thing you're pretending to be.
Yeah.
You drink your own Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Yeah. So many spirit mediums, although they started as basically tricksters, eventually came to believe that they really could do what they did.
Who else is like that I'm thinking of right now?
There it is.
Yeah.
Just someone.
Yeah, you become the thing you pretend to be. At least
I pretend to be a meat sandwich, and I'm waiting to become one.
I wonder if there's been an upsurge in interest in the paranormal in general during all of this.
They call the increase in ghost hunting using gadgets. It's parapsychologists refer to it as techno-spiritualism. This modern resurgence. Yeah, it's modern resurgence.
Is the pandemic causing a surge in this stuff?
More than likely.
I don't think so. Not this. I don't think it's increased this year. Although I will say that I've noticed that it's hard to say. I've noticed some disturbing trends in ghost hunting and paranormal.
Wendy says yes.
Yes. In the paranormal circles and that sort of thing. As I delved into some Facebook groups, it does not look pretty, so to speak. It's probably a topic for a different time, but yeah, the ghost hunters are a mixed bag, and that's
Oh
where
yeah,
they
definitely.
want to be taken seriously as paranormal investigators looking at it through a scientific lens. But there's only so far you can take that sort of mentality. But usually it's people just looking for validation. I call it the good, the bad, and the sad.
Or to become famous.
Yeah. Some of them want to become famous. Some of them are generally interested. Those are the good ones. For those who are genuinely interested, are ghosts, the
Yeah, I
supernatural.
know. I have friends, very. I have good friends who are involved in that arena, and they're genuinely curious people who think it's stuff that should be looked into.
Yep.
Aside from ideas of belief or disbelief, just let's gather data and look at it and see what it says about us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they're not sharing data though. That'd be nice. if you go to a paranormal convention, I've been to a few in my life. You go to there, they'll say this rhetoric over and over again. They know not themselves where this comes from, but they say these words over and over again. There are no experts in the paranormal. There are no experts in ghost hunting, and that sort of thing. Now, if you ask them, like, why do you say that? The question usually, after rolling their eyes up for a second as they think about why they say that, it's usually something along the lines, well, you can't learn everything. You can't know. You still don't know what ghosts are, is the response you get. But the thing is, like, if you know the medieval history of the origins of the unicorn, that it came from European explorers who went to Africa, saw rhinoceroses, and came back and reported it, then that makes you kind of an expert on an animal that doesn't exist, unicorns, right? Above average understanding about a topic, you write about it, you document it. That makes you an expert. That's what defines an expert. So there can be experts in something that may or may not exist. The reason, and here I am pontificating again, the reason there are no experts in the paranormal, because an expert means there would be accountability. Yeah, you'd have to start
accreditation, maybe.
Accreditation, yeah, accountability, accreditation, something along those lines.
Yeah,
that's yeah,
and then that's a whole new ball game. Bringing data to a belief fight, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Touche.
Yep.
Touche.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's techno spiritualism is that mixing of science and belief. They're trying to validate.
I just keep seeing ghosts and just.
No, I mean, when the spiritualist movement first happened, it was
Houdini back again.
It was described in terms that were very sciency, and many believers called it the new science. And it was because science was on the rise, technology was expanding, and our knowledge was expanding. And this was a way to, like, sort of couch a kind of religion in a sciency kind of wrapper. And so spiritualism had this, this sort of this vaguely sciency aura about it. And
which is actually not surprising, because you realize that science back then, I mean, turn of the 20th century and the 19th century, it was so much of the science was done by what we call amateurs today.
Right.
The research that was done, that's not a professional. I mean, this idea, there's this committee that the Scientific American put together to investigate the mediums that Houdini was, involved with to try and do this, was a unique thing. So much of this investigation into studying sound and the speed of light, and I mean, these things that were done by what we would call amateurs, people who would take their time and work on things, and were not at big universities or huge labs. So and there's in Holland, there's this thing called the Taylor Museum in Rotterdam. And it's this beautiful museum of all these artifacts from people that had been working, in this amateur world in the early days of building electricity and studying electricity and telephony and the storage of electricity. I mean, this was done by people, you know, in their
Who are
backyards, in their
enthusiasts.
homes. It's like Hooker, you know, the Hooker rising cards. The guy was a chemist and worked out of his, you know, his
attic.
yeah, exactly, his attic, and the
Yeah.
back, you know, the upper floors of the house behind the stable behind his house, you know, and he would fool some of the professionals, but he was a true amateur. That this is where you would be able to take the time to work and study things. So the idea that a scientific new science would develop out of the study of spiritualism is not surprising.
Yeah.
And also, it's completely reasonable that if there is the suspicion of something might be real, these amateur scientists are like gonna go explore it. And you know,
Like
Edison
amateur
created an
astronomer.
instrument, right?
Yeah.
You know, scientists explored this idea. Scientists believed in these, and they went to seances. Important scientists did this, and researchers, and many of them were amateurs.
Yeah, the problem is that most ghost hunters are Jersey Shore bras or rednecks and hillbillies. I hate to break it to you. By the way, Peter, the secret to Hooker's rising. And that's how you do it. I mean,
this is such an inside joke. If there happen to be non-magicians watching this, it's a famous magic effect that was described by people who witnessed it, and only very, very few people know how it was done. So it's become
As a
kind
matter
of
of fact,
legendary.
and the family that had the secrets of this, you know, who sold it, but under the condition that it would be performed once,
Yeah.
which it was done at the history conference in Los Angeles. They actually did it a second time. I was fortunate enough to be able to see it in there, and it was really quite something. But you know, since then,
Yep. Yeah, so it's become a bit of a legend.
Absolutely.
With magicians speculating as to how it was done.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
I've done it myself.
It's magicians Ashley Place levitation, basically. Yeah. So when you were doing the research for that musical, did you rely on any particular sources for info?
No, I mean nothing particular. I mean, this was many years ago. I have to admit, this was, you know, roughly 25 years ago when we first started working on this, something in that era range. And it was a matter of the demands of the theater, the theatrical demands of the play itself, and what would work within that. And there were certain scenes that demanded certain pieces, and there were other areas in which there was some, you know, there was so there's a certain amount of research of what was done historically in that era,
right?
You know, so there was part of that, and then part of it was really just a matter of working with Gabriel Barry, who was the director on this, and Gabe, you know, had this vision of what he wanted this to be, and so there's a certain amount of it was just realizing the director's vision. So.
Yeah, I assume the magic that was in that show was probably better than the magic in Houdini's show.
It may well have been.
Yeah,
it may well have been part of that. Yeah, but you know, there were challenging things like teaching an actor to do needle swallowing, and how do you rig it in a way that it actually looks good, but doesn't risk the singer.
Right.
You know, this guy's this is his profession. The last thing you want to do is do something that's going to put that at risk. It's like,
all right. So Peter and David, you may want to sit up a little bit, put your heads up a little bit more. All right, ready? Here we go.
Houdini and Randy after him did huge damage in the scientific skepticism. What's wrong?
I agree. I think the word skeptic became co-opted by debunkers. Debunkers who would grandstand and gain publicity by, you know, pointing a finger and saying you're a fraud. That was the gag. That was the gag I was going to do in the show. You know, with some weirdo stands up in the audience and takes off a wig and says, "I'm the great Houdini, and I declare you to be a fraud."
Christian,
that's not skepticism. It's not scientific inquiry. It's a publicity stunt, and Houdini was good at that. So I think, unfortunately, the field of skepticism and scientific inquiry became populated by this type of behavior, and it was seen as a good thing. And I don't think it's a good thing. It's not open-minded inquiry, which is what skepticism should be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's throw in the other side of that, which is, that self-delusional inquiry is also a problem too.
Oh,
You're not
absolutely. No, I
this is the
agree.
problem.
I
You get
agree.
Target Puthoff running around over there, and
Yeah.
I mean, this is the major issue that that Randy and Banachek, was a prime example in the research that happens there, where people are being deluded and they're not. They think they know what's going on, and the fact is that humans are not.
Are fallible creatures with
They're
flaws,
fallible, and they're
biases.
also, and many are mendacious.
Yeah. No, my approach whenever I'm asked this question about, do you believe in ghosts, or do you believe in any kind of or ESP, do you believe in all this stuff? I say I try to approach these subjects with a studious avoidance of belief and disbelief. I try to remain as neutral as possible, because belief and disbelief at either end of the scale shuts off doors, and it shuts off avenues of exploration. I want to be in the middle, in a neutral ground, so that I can gather data and examine it.
I've always liked the phrase, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof,
Indeed.
And that's fine. I have no problem with that, because there's some things where, you set out to, fly a plane.
Yep. I would like to say
Doesn't
the
seem to
burden
be
of proof.
possible. It's like eventually it happens, and then you go, okay, well, how did that work?
Yeah.
And the burden of proof falls on the accuser. And then Christian says,
Who does that remind me of?
I have had arguments with people, who have strong beliefs in astrology, and I've always felt, for me, that astrology is a beautiful form of poetry.
Well, of course you would say that. You're a Libra.
It's very Libra of you to say.
Gemini. I have a good friend who used to say, I'm an equestrian on a cuspidor of a great circle.
During the development of Skeptic magazine, which was founded by the Randy Foundation, I believe, they were going to put an article on astrology in the premier issue, the very first issue, and there was a breaking of the ranks during the planning of this, because a recent study that came out around this time, decades ago, of course, when this magazine first came out, had shown a certain degree of evidence to support astrology, in that not to say the planetary alignments affected your life or daily schedule or anything like that, but that when you were born may affect what time of year you were born, may affect how your life proceeds, or so in some way. Okay. And the editors removed the article. They didn't want to put it in there because it vaguely supported the idea of astrology. So they cut it, and it's caused people to quit the magazine, because they're like, we're supposed to be, objective,
open-minded about this,
open-minded here, yes, but we're not being right out of the bat.
Yeah.
So that magazine did not kick off very well for that reason. So
and
my thing has always been, I respect belief without dogma or legislation, and I respect skepticism without dogma. And unfortunately, there are extremists on both ends, and I don't think either gets us to science. I don't believe in the paranormal or God or ghosts, but I also know that I can't prove the existence of God. I can't disprove the existence of God. Doesn't mean I believe in God. I just know that I can't scientifically disprove.
Right.
I'm very
I don't know
theory
if you-
agnostic.
I don't know if you heard, but there's this teapot between the Earth and the Sun, just floating in orbit.
Is it a little teapot?
It's a little teapot, yes. Very
Short
hard
and
to
stout.
find.
Is it short and stout?
Yeah, I think the characterization is Houdini as the arch skeptic, and then the people who've modeled themselves on him has done some damage to actual skeptical inquiry into.
Yeah.
Yeah, the problem was if you actually studied Randy, he wasn't skeptical enough of eugenics and among other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's uncomfortable to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, indeed.
David, you and I both know somebody who's had experience with a mystery school that is not a McBride mystery school, in which deception was used to try to inculcate belief in the power that will can cause something to happen. I'm being a little obtuse because I'm just not really at liberty to go into details on that.
No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is, and the difficulty with that is that when that's knowingly used, this is possibly to a good end. The problem is that people walk away with beliefs that don't help them in the world in
Right.
a significant way.
Yeah. I agree. It's but belief, the two extremes of the scale of belief and disbelief, like automatic dismissal of everything or blind belief in things, are unhealthy to the human animal, I think. And that
I also think they're endemic to the human animal. It's like we want the easy answer. We want just like, what is it? And then I will go with that. I mean, it's not unusual that somebody who was completely very religious and faithful and believed everything, they go the other way and they go extreme, dismiss everything skeptically.
Like a background.
And so it becomes easy for the pop-offs of the world to take advantage of those people, or people who go to a different kind of mystery school and take advantage of those people. But then there's the other side where, like the amount of times I've had a magician friend say, I just dismiss something because they did not see the scientific shmeh behind it, and be like, and I can't think of something right now, but I'd be like, no, here's a thing. Here's an article, or I'd just be like, well, let's think about it this way. Just, there's a, we always like to quote Arthur C. Clarke. Right. And
technology is indistinguishable from magic.
But he's got three lines. Do we know what those three lines are?
Well,
don't remember.
Sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and then following that is.
I have to find it. Wendy, do you know?
Googling now.
Yeah, I don't know. So you're saying there's a statement preceding and following that?
Yes, it's part of a triptych.
There is, and I don't remember what it is, but yes.
The second Clarke's three laws. Here we go. Okay, wait. Third law. Where's the first law?
When a distinguished but elderly scientist states that something is possible, he's almost certainly right. When he states that something is impossible, that he is very probably wrong. The third law is any sufficient. Oh, yeah. Second law, the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible.
And I think that's a very important thing. Like, yes, let's get rid of the pop-offs of the world and like whack-a-mole them down whenever they pop up. Yes, there we go, Wendy. Thank you, Wendy. But like never to the, but that's separate from the charlatans is still should be separate from not dismissing the craziest of ideas just because they sound crazy. We should investigate them, right? I mean, once upon a time, the idea that there's bacteria on our hand, little beasties on our hand, would be a ridiculous idea.
Sure.
And then germ theory came along.
Yeah, dismissing things out of hand because they might come up. This is part of why Carl Sagan ended up leaving the skeptics organization, because he felt that they were just automatically naysaying things, and he felt it was like, no, we have to look at it no matter how ridiculous the idea,
Right.
and seriously examine it in a scientific way, and then maybe we can dismiss it.
Right.
Which was treated as a kind of heresy. I mean, he frequently pointed out that, like, for example, the idea of plate tectonics, the idea that the surface of the Earth has these plates of land that are shifting over time, and that at one time they were all shoved together like a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle, was viewed initially as a ridiculous idea. It was viewed as kind of a silly thing, like, oh, right, yeah.
Well,
But eventually it became accepted science.
That's how all beliefs start. I mean, people want to know. People don't want to think that there's randomness in the universe. It's hard for a human being to accept the idea that things happen for no reason. When lightning strikes, people believed it was Thor with his hammer or Zeus on Mount Olympus. So they make up these ideas to try to explain these phenomena until a better answer comes along.
Yeah.
And they keep searching for the origins of even those answers. So they're always looking for things to explain things.
But this is the important part.
Yeah.
Scientific understandings can't be made into dogma. The way science works is it says, this is how we think the world works, pending further information.
And this is currently the best explanation we have, and it fulfills the role of both explaining and predicting.
Right. But if we get information to the contrary, we're going to have to change the theory. So that's what's beautiful about science. It is flexible enough to expand as we grow and expand.
Right, which is all about asking.
Okay, I mean, now we're going off topic of Houdini, but it is only as flexible as the minds that are doing it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's so inflexible, they'll just kill the person with the new idea. That was a few centuries ago, but it happened, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, what that classic line, is, well, we've learned everything that we need to know about physics. There'll be nothing new to, physics is going to be a boring subject.
Who said that? That was a 19th century or early 20th century scientist who said that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Famous
I can't remember. It wasn't. I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Planck, because Planck is too smart.
No. Yeah.
No, so I can't
It was
remember who it wasn't.
They said there's no point in patenting anything new because everything that's been created has been invented already and discovered. So
yeah, no.
By the way, in the Houdini thing, this idea of not patenting things was very interesting, as Copperfield has patented the flying, or Johnny Gone has patented the flying.
Yeah. So
it's
reveals nothing.
it's available. Freedom of information. You can look it up.
You can.
I have,
exactly.
And it tells you nothing about how
exactly.
It tells you nothing. It literally is a couple of sketches of a pulley and a rope and some words, and that's it. I mean, it's nothing in there. Who knows if that's how accurate that is.
Now, didn't Teller use the dodge of copywriting a thing as a play, as a one-act play?
The rose,
the shadow effect.
Shadow.
Yeah. That's a clever little dodge.
Well, this thing. I've gotten into huge conversations with Tom Stone about this idea of the Berne Convention of copyright, which the United States was a signatory, I think, in 1989 of this. So there's some period of time when we were not participants in this, this copyright overview, this worldwide agreement on the Berne Convention, and I think it's the Berne Convention, yeah, and so this idea of what is copyrightable, and what is protected, and what can you do, the idea of something, and this comes up a lot in, this is not completely off. I guess we could tie it back to Houdini if we make a good stretch. But this idea of when something is in print, if you put it into a book, by putting it into a book, does that mean that it's there for you to be able to perform it?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it there simply as a description of something? As a
documentation? Yeah, I mean, the
of
convention in magic is that if you publish it, it's available to everyone. But that's
otherwise I owe Peter like $40-50.
Yeah. But it's so apart from like our normal understanding of copyright of intellectual property. Yeah. And it's a tradition that's developed among magicians. It's very weird.
It's interesting because if you wrote a best-selling fictional book and someone made a play without your permission, you could sue them and probably win. Yeah. But if you wrote a book about your magic show and someone performed it verbatim, or if you invented a character and someone performed as that character, would you be able to sue them because you put it out as a instructional?
No. For some reason, magic developed completely apart from our normal understanding of intellectual property and copyright. And I don't know why.
Because they were how-to books. They were
exactly. That's what the original point was. Christian, you're right. I mean, that's when you think about modern magic. I mean, this was written as part of this how-to series, right?
You think that's it?
I do think that's a lot of what it is, and to me, that's
otherwise you don't give it away.
A lot of magic books are written is this sort of to say this is how to do it. It's a teaching tool.
Yeah. It's all the way back
documentation.
Going all the way back to Hocus Pocus Jr.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
otherwise there's no reason for diagrams and showing you which way to hold the ball. I mean,
yeah, exactly, and the detail of like you do it this way particularly. Oh, let's not get into that.
Oh my
God. That's hours of stuff. And
no, actually, I answered that question.
You'd have to add one other one.
If you don't suck at it, it's art, and if you do suck at it, it's trade.
I answered that question in one sentence. In the sentence,
there you go.
Let's just act as if it were an art and see what happens. Here's a radical
nonfiction.
I love it, David. It's great.
So going back to Houdini for a second, let me ask you guys a question. All of you have certainly seen and possibly even performed Houdini seances. So what is the best Houdini seance you've seen? Christian, you have not?
Mm-mm.
You never attended a Houdini seance before?
No. I've attended a seance, but I've never attended nor done a Houdini seance.
We brought Eric Mead in to do a seance on an Amtrak train, doing the seance as the train was passing underneath the Hudson River.
Oh,
wow.
Figuring what a great place, and nobody had ever done it before, but the Hudson, I mean, because,
he famously dived into it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. The other day, what popped into my head was a memory of a broadcast TV show of a Houdini seance in which Randy was sick. And so he, rather than not attending the broadcast, they wheeled him out on a gurney. And he lay there during the Houdini seance
on stage on TV.
Yeah. And how weird that was. Like, I don't even get it. Like, why is he there?
And they had like a light on him. They had like this light on him, and he's in the gurney with the hospital
light and everything,
like just glowing.
And it was like, why is he there? This is so weird.
They're trying to contact a dead man, and there's a man in a hospital gurney glowing at you.
And he didn't say anything or contribute or anything like that. It's astonishing
Really,
to see.
Wendy? Oh, that's great.
So I'd
So
say that's my
psychic
favorite.
surgery. I mean, did they try to, reach in and produce? Houdini's-
That would have been cool.
That
would
would have been great.
But I'd say that's my favorite one because it was just so weird. It was like, what is this about? What is going on? Because the camera would show the shot of him lying there in the gurney, like not participating. It was so weird. Yeah, it's on YouTube. Look it up.
So speaking of weird and Randy, this was at the SAM 100th anniversary show in Manhattan, and somebody got sick. So Jonathan Pendragon, who I have great respect for, offered to do a spot for the guy. So he decided to do the straitjacket escape while being waterboarded.
What?
Swear to God. So he's like there with a cloth over his mouth. He's trying to escape while they're pouring water onto it. I mean, it's just
it's horrible.
It was absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
But Jonathan was really trying to do something. I mean, bring it up to sort of speed. And it was like,
And that would have been the thing. Yeah, that's yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, go on. And I just wanted to echo that would have been the proper resonance for the time. And
wow.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that playing as entertainment.
It was wild, but this is one of those great examples of sometimes you have to be willing to try anything. Not everything works, but this gets back to this idea of asking questions. It's like, you have to keep asking questions. Sometimes you say, has that question been asked before and disproven? I don't want to waste my time with it again.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a lot of conversations I'm not getting into. Yes, he did, Wendy.
He did. Okay.
And he's fine. Yes, exactly. Which sounds like one.
No,
of
his ghost still haunts this theater.
Oh man, that theater was crazy. The theater was like on the 3rd floor, and the only way you could get there was by elevator. And they had like closed down 2 of the elevators, so it was like one elevator taking hundreds of people up. The thing started on one day and didn't finish until the morning of the next day. I mean, it's the first convention show. It was the show that ran from like supposedly 8 o'clock at night, but it didn't finish until like 1:30 in the morning. It was
magicians. They're crazy. They're crazy.
It was an amazing experience.
Wow. It's an endurance test and a show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Magic convention shows are like, magicians want to eat chocolate cake until they puke. They're like little kids at a birthday party who just want to eat the cake until they throw up.
And then when they throw up, they go back to the party.
Exactly. That's what
Christian, look out.
Shows are.
Look out, Christian.
What?
Look out.
Evil.
Haunted ghosts. Vegan haunted ghosts.
But yeah, I've performed Houdini seances in the past few years. I didn't do one this year, obviously. I did a Jack the Ripper one instead. But usually I put a lot of emphasis on what a D-bag Houdini was in the performances and that sort of thing. Acknowledging the contributions. I mean, the fact that Houdini is a household name. He is single-handedly the most famous entertainer.
He would be delighted that we are sitting here talking about him right now.
Oh yeah,
he's so thrilled.
Yep. People will forget Madonna and other famous one-name people, but Houdini will live forever. Probably, it's like out like Houdini, and when someone mentions an escape, they mention Houdini. If your dog gets out of the yard over and over again, it's like Houdini.
Well, the thing he was so proud of that he would constantly remind people of was that for a while his name was a word in a dictionary, and the word was Houdinize, to Houdinize as a verb. And he was so thrilled to be a verb in the dictionary, and that his stationery reminded people of it at the top of the stationery, that Houdinize was a word in the dictionary. Well, no one knows that word anymore. It is not in the dictionary, but people are still using his name, so he'd be thrilled. He won. Yeah, Houdini won.
So the question is, Houdini decided that he was going to do all these exposés of medium. Do you think that people were convinced that they had their eyes opened by his exposés, or
No.
do you think that people just continued to believe? So
Yeah.
Not as much as
I think that's
as much as it works now.
Yeah, you have people have their own baggage. They're processing whatever performance it is, whether it's an expose or a straight up magic show or mentalism or whatever, or a spook show. They're processing it through their own baggage and worldview and all that stuff. The performer's never privy to that information, so we don't know. And it colors their perception of the performance. So if I were sitting in the audience watching Houdini say that all mediums are frauds, I'm bringing to that my experience in magic, right?
I mean, I think
the audience is bringing to it, like I went to a seance and the medium told me stuff the person could never have known.
I think people are convinced and unconvinced to the same degree that people are and are not convinced today, right? I mean, some people go from like the shut eye to full open eye to angry open eye because of their experiences. Some people kind of go, well, I'm glad I know about these things, but I had this one experience this one time. Do I think the work is important? Yes. Do I think it does any sort of mass conversion to rational thought?
No.
I think you get a few people. I think you get a few people.
Works.
Either side. If you had two conventions next to each other, one is a skeptic convention, the other one's a paranormal convention. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to make people believe more that already are convinced by going to one of those. You're going to divide up, to the believers are going to go to the paranormal convention, the skeptics are going to go to the skeptic convention, and they're just going to reaffirm their already existing beliefs. They're not going to have their minds altered. That happens so rarely, it's barely mentioned. It's barely worth mentioning.
Yeah. It's I mean, so it has ever been, and so it will ever be.
Really? Oh, if sorry, I did not see the word if. I'm all like, what? That really happened?
Yeah, it just happened yesterday. The psychic convention.
Why is that?
When you tuned out of the Biden address tonight, that's when that happened. Schwarzenegger came right up on stage and did that.
Yeah,
Wendy, why is it that it tends to be more women at the psychic convention?
Wendy, why aren't you on the stream right now?
Do you have a
Send me the link.
She's typing.
Psychic conventions are way more fun.
Well,
Vince, can you bring up what Wendy just said?
That is 100% true. Yeah.
And one of the other differences is that women tend to blend, and men tend to be confrontational. So in this idea of blending, there's this, you have to adopt acceptance.
Right.
So there's a certain,
Yeah.
Oh, bring up Wendy's before that one. Yeah, I did not know that. I don't go to those conventions.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. The skeptics. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of toxic cultural stuff involved there. At a skeptic convention, You guys, how long have we been on? How long?
We've been blabbing for a while.
It's 11:30 my time. We started at 9:30.
Oh, it says
2 hours.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Hokey smokes.
Man, this is longer than a presidential speech.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Ah, Houdini.
You scamp.
man.
You scamp.
Oh, the scam comment. I was waiting for that.
Well, it was
Thank
cool.
you, Vince.
This was a cool thing. I'm glad we got a chance to hang out and chat.
Yeah.
Publicly,
Exactly.
so everyone can know.
Exactly.
It's out there
Exactly.
forever now.
I'm glad we made a public spectacle of ourselves,
Yeah. Yep.
as Houdini would have.
Yeah. Please
Yeah,
send all
actually, bring up Tom's most recent comment.
please send all comments to @DavidParr, David at DavidParrMagic.com.
Yay.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. So, for those who are in the know, you're very welcome, Tom. Thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah,
is it?
thanks everybody.
Yeah, right.
yeah. We need to pad this out for another hour.
I'm paying with cans of asparagus. Sorry, Peter.
I'm sorry. I got caught up in reading Wendy's.
Car.
Just reading Wendy's comments here, which I find are great. So thanks.
So so give us about until about 15 minutes, everyone, for the after show. For those who are in the know, and about if the usual link will work. If you don't have
Are we
it,
going to the champagne room after this? Are we going to the champagne room?
The
yeah,
usual.
we're going to the champagne room after this. But I think that's it for the StreamYard. Guys, stick around for a few seconds, and we'll shut off.
This is how we go to the champagne room.
I don't have
Where
a
would
link
one
for
find
that.
the
Is
link?
there-
we can't put it in here because
okay.
yeah,
Can you put it in the
because it'll
private
be out
chat?
forever on Facebook and YouTube, and we don't want
Okay.
that.
Right, exactly.
So if you're interested in the after show, you are a magician and performer. Please, that's right. It's Saturday. Yep. Please send me a link and we'll get that out there.
Message Vince.
Yeah.
And I would just like, because I'm going to impose my opinion here, I just like to make a toast. We could all do a virtual toast for a new day, a new era.
Yes, please.
Indeed.
I'll drink to that.
Yep.
I can
Agreed.
breathe again.
And my little imp agrees too.
By the way, I'm being a nerd, and I actually am drinking scotch and soda.
Oh, nice.
Oh, dude. No wonder you're so loquacious.
What'd you call me? Those are fighting words.
Loquacious.
Soda stream.
Yeah.
No,
It needs a little scotch, Peter. I don't see enough scotch in that soda stream.
I listen. I had to make that trip to Vegas, and so I gave up drinking before that because I figured that I was, if I had to perform sober, I'm gonna have to rehearse sober. I learned that from Francis Carlyle, who believed that in order to perform drunk, you had to rehearse drunk. So.
Wait, what performance in Vegas was this?
I'll talk to you about it. So
Was this a recent performance in Vegas?
it was, yeah.
Ooh.
Exactly. And yeah. Anyway, but by the way, David and Vince, I've done more work on that.
Oh, good.
After
good,
coming
good.
back, so
What I saw was fantastic.
I'll send you back. I'll send you some stuff. So
Good. Yeah.
I want it. What's going on? Let me.
yeah, exactly.
After party. After party.
Actually, it's not,
ending
none of
broadcast.
this is true, Christian. None of this is true. It's just the three of us are setting you up. So
God damn it.